Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Mountain Stream Meditation. My name's Adam Stonebreaker, if we haven't met yet, and I'm the guiding teacher here. And it's been a while since I've talked up here. I think it was November 4th or something like that. I just saw that today. Stonebreaker. Yeah. Oh, let me do this. Ah, okay, great. So let's start with some meditation. And then, so the way this night works is we'll have a meditation about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a small break. And then I'll offer some Dharma reflections, and then we'll try to do a Q&A, and then some metta, and then we'll be finished. So, yeah. So we'll just start off with getting comfortable here. And feel free to move around a little bit. Oh, something that's not often focused on in our meditation practice is comfort. So if you need to sit on the ground or lie down or anything like that, please feel free to do that. And maybe taking a few deep breaths. And at any point in the meditation, if the mind gets going or there's a contraction around a particular thought or just you're spinning, take a few deep breaths. Those long, long exhales have a immediate calming quality over the body, nervous system. And we just begin by just assessing the situation here, noticing what the physical body feels like. Notice any places of tension or holding or openness, softness, ease. Places like the jaw and the eyes, the belly, the shoulders, the neck, the feet, even the sinuses behind the eyes. Noticing the breathing. And then the mind, is it scattered or still, contracted around one particular thought or a few different thoughts, or it's just movement? It's the overall tone of the mind. And then just feeling into the environment, the presence of others here, the senses open in all directions. And just allowing presence The primary way we allow presence is to bring our attention at least centered around something that is always present. The most common thing is the breath. There are many ways to experience the breath. Well, I'll encourage you to try to keep a more relaxed or all-pervasive relationship with the breath. As if the breath was moving through the entirety of the body. The breath intermingling and breaking up thought, tension. this broadness isn't stable enough for you, you could perhaps concentrate the breath in one particular area, perhaps a place where there's tension. So I often bring my attention to the heart and breathe the heart as if my main source of breathing was coming from that place. Or perhaps the belly, or anywhere there's tension. For this final stretch of the meditation, let's bringing kindness to the body, kindness to this mind. Just being here is an act of kindness in and of itself, but being very intentional. And allowing that kindness to radiate outwards in all directions. to the people in this room or anyone who comes to mind that could use a little kindness. For those of you online, I'm ringing the bell. Thank you for your practice. Okay, so we'll take a little break now, say 5 minutes. We'll get going at 6:38. We'll hear a bell. Okay, before I start, I'd like to do honor the Buddha. Um, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Mm. I like to honor the Buddha. That little chant just means Namo is I honor, or I honor, or my teacher Kittasaro translates it as I return. And so it's paying homage to the Buddha, the teacher of the Buddha, but also just um, the potential for awakening that we all have. Uh, and so we honor that within ourselves and within each other, but also the teacher too, because I'm really grateful for the Buddha, because I don't know where I'd be without these teachings. And I think about this. This time of the year is often a very reflective time for me. And I just think of where I came from, this sort of, lower income, you know, kind of fairly violent family in Tennessee and Kentucky. And somehow this kid found the Dharma. Like, it's very strange. And there is plenty of reason for me not to find the Dharma, but I did. So I always like to honor that. And and I often reflect on that privilege of being born in a time and a place where the Dharma is so freely offered. It's go on Google, find thousands of sanghas on there, study with any teacher you want to online, and it used to be not so available, There, most of human history, 99% of human history, it was not available. So I'm really grateful for that. So I like to honor the Buddha. Yeah. Okay. So joy. I've been thinking about joy a lot lately. I looked at my talk on November 4th today, and it was about joy. So I totally forgot about that. And then Tuere, when she taught about joy. And I think it's really important because, especially in Buddhist circles, we spend a lot of time on suffering. It's like always about suffering, like constantly about suffering. And it's not really the most attractive quality of Buddhism. And so the Buddha is sort of described, or Buddhism, and the Buddha is said to have said that life is suffering, which isn't exactly what he said. Suffering happens in a particular way in the world, and so Buddhism is very associated with suffering. But there's lots more there. That's what I hope to talk about tonight. And this time of year is especially, it's about joy. You see the word joy. I remember putting up ornaments that said joy on them, and it's seemingly about joy. I mean, it should be about joy. It isn't always. And so for many people, this time of the year brings the opportunity for connection and celebration and gratitude and uh, generosity, all of these things. But it can also carry stress and extreme materialism or pressure or expectations. And for me and how I grew up, this Christmas was always awful. It was always terrible. It was just we couldn't afford gifts, and so we sometimes we didn't get anything, and you go to school, and and everybody has gifts, and it's just you're surrounded by this materialistic culture, and it brings so much stress, and it's also the time where the most intense fighting was in the house. And so it's always had this, though I've tried to get in the stream of joy during this time, it's always has a shadow to it, which is good, I think. It's balancing. So this has always been a very reflective time, but traditionally, just in all traditions throughout the world, this time in the northern hemisphere is a time of reflection, of going deep, of really feeling into the shadow and kind of getting underneath things and looking at motivations and uh, uh, and into that darker side of human nature. And so I get into these places, and this question always comes up: is what about joy? What about joy? What place does joy have in my life? And joy kind of gets a bad rap because it's really associated with like exuberance and happiness. But I see joy much differently. Joy is sort of is a resiliency. It's not necessarily a happiness. It's what helps you get through things. It's a motivation. It's that energy of motivation. Um, And so in Buddhism, we train in joy. We train in creating sort of a baseline of joy so that we always, no matter what we go through out there in the world, we can always return to this baseline of joy. Like always coming back to this baseline of joy. Yeah, I was listening to a talk the other day, and he was talking about being on retreat, and if he was imagining people looking in the window and seeing, people who didn't know about Buddhism would like look in the window and they see these people just like with blankets around them, like sitting there for hours on end, and then getting up and walking really slow, and then eating really slow, like just kind of looking morose. No one, they don't know what's going on inside them, but it's really funny. It's that association. But it's what's interesting is that in the time of the Buddha, his followers were known as the happy ones, or the joyful ones, or the radiant ones. They carried this joy, and if you see someone who's a teacher who's realized, who's done a lot of practice, they're always very joyful. You know, someone like I heard in some conversations I heard Thich Nhat Hanh mentioned, and somebody who's been through so much suffering, but he always had a smile. That's the joy. Or the Dalai Lama, he's always laughing. He's experienced some of the worst horrors on the planet. Or someone I really admire is this woman named Eddie Hellesum, and she wrote. There's a book called oh, what's it called? I can't think of it right now. Uh, can't think of it, but it's one of my favorite books. And she wasn't known until after she died. She wrote a series of journal entries during World War II. She was a Jew in Amsterdam and experiencing horror after horror every single day. But her journal entries always came back to joy and presence and perspective and what really matters and creating community and this loving thing. And I think of her and I'm like, if she can do that, yeah, yeah. Many of the journal entries are actually from the concentration camps. And she's always coming back. She's always finding a way to help the children, or helping those who are suffering, or doing something, writing about it. Like, we can get through this. It's really beautiful. A Life Interrupted is what it's called. And so you'd think these these followers of the Buddha who are asked to live what they called the homeless life, giving up all possessions. All they had was a bowl in order to put the food they begged for into, you know. They had a robe and a bowl, and that's all they had. They slept outside or in huts, and they were known as the radiant ones, the joyful ones. Uh, and they were known for their lightness and their delight in the practice. I often think of that. Do I actually delight in my practice? What's keeping me from delighting in the practice? And the Dhammapada, it says to the Buddha, live in joy, in peace among those who are troubled. Live in joy without possessions, like the shining ones. The shining ones are the followers of the Buddha. So it's something I think about is just how do you reconcile this joy and the suffering, you know, the joy and the dukkha. You know, dukkha means unsatisfactory, basically. So a material life is going to inherently be unsatisfactory because everything is impermanent. So if we put our trust or our faith or require life to be joyful and from material, because material is constantly changing, we're bound to suffer. And so that's what creates suffering. Um, and so reconciling that with joy. So if I can't find joy in what's external or in possessions or anything else, where do I find? And I think that this season offers something for us in this strange way. Now, this there's a lot of holidays, you know, now Christmas and Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, and they're all known as they're celebrations of light. Uh, Hanukkah, I believe, is the festival of lights, right? Um, and then Christmas has the light, and Kwanzaa has the light, and sometimes Diwali lands on this time of year, and that's all these cultures have these celebrations of light, and there's some really good light around here, and this I've seen some good displays in Nevada City, like some of the Christmas lights, and yeah, I'm thinking of this, so I have to say it. But on when we moved here in January, last January, on our street, there's this house, and it's like, wow, they love Christmas. Like they really love it. Like you look, all their windows are, you know, there's no drapes. There's a Christmas tree in every room. I think I counted 10 Christmas trees. And there's the whole house. I mean, the stairway banister has pencil, you know, the whole thing is just decorated. And it was like the end of January, like, wow, that's up for a while. And then February came and it was still up. I was like, wow, okay. And then I was away in March for on a retreat, and I came back in April, and it was there still. Uh, and then it was there the next month, the next month, the next month, the next month, every day, just like Christmas, you know. And finally, it's appropriate again. But I kind of respect it. It's, you know, this person found their joy, and they're just going with it. Like, who am I to judge how they live their life? It's pretty great actually. I just really want to go in there and meet those people. And so there's this symbolic this symbolism of when it's darkest, you know, that's where the light comes in. And so, you know, solstice time, the darkest night of the year. Um, and so there's this human need to bring light to the dark, both literally and metaphorically. And so we shine light in the darkest corners of our psyche and of our lives, not to eliminate the darkness, but to just see what's there. So light and dark can kind of live side by side. There could be this habit in spirituality how we want to just sort of eliminate the darkness with all of this light, and that's a very That's a very common thing on social media. But that's not Buddhist at all. It's really what we're trying to do in Buddhism is see things for what they are and find joy in them anyway. So joy comes under, I think they think of underneath, or you could think of beyond the things of the mind or the body. And so so joy isn't this thing that we search for out there because external joys aren't sustainable. Uh, Accomplishments, material possessions, pleasures, they don't last. And so joy arises from somewhere deep within. And the Buddha often talked about the Dharma points us further inward. And that when we go further inward, we're uncovering a deeper and deeper and deeper joy and satisfaction. Yeah. And this, we cultivate mindfulness, and the more and more we're here in presence, the more joy we uncover right here, right now, as we move beyond the conditionality of the mind and our lives. There's so much joy in presence, and we cultivate that, and that creates a space for the natural joy to emerge. Mm. We're mindful, we notice the small, little, beautiful things that are around. There's more space for the joy to come in. And so the sound of the rain outside, which there's been a lot of lately, a simple smile of someone, that I really love the first sip of the coffee in the morning, brings a lot of joy. Oh, all right, I hear that. I find a lot of joy just sitting in my meditation seat in the morning. It's like, ah, I've arrived. It's very joyful. It's different than happiness. It's deeper. There's something different. There's not like a grand quality to these things. They're simple, they're easy, they're easeful, not easy. It's these ordinary experiences of our lives. My first teacher, a Buddhist teacher, used to say, enlightenment is ordinary. It's like he would say it's nothing special. It's nothing special, which I always really appreciated. Never really understood, but I appreciate. Here's something else from the Dhammapada. It says, as a bee gathers nectar and moves on without harming the flower, its color, or its fragrance, so too does the wise one move through the world, seeing its beauty, cultivating joy, but without clinging. So as a bee gathers nectar and moves on without harming the flower, its color, or its fragrance, so too does the wise one move through the world, seeing its beauty, cultivating joy, but without clinging. And so this is the mindfulness in action. It's this being present enough to gather the nectar of joy without getting caught up in the grasping and the striving. Because the grasping and the striving is where the suffering is. Yeah. And so this luminosity that mindfulness brings a luminosity to our lives, to the present moment. And in that, the joy comes through. And so this metaphor of bringing lightness to the dark is kind of what helps me get through this season. is uh is the richness and uncovering, this deeper and deeper and deeper joy that's there for us. It's really beautiful. Yeah. So in Buddhism, joy is not this passing feeling. It's a quality of the mind and the heart that we nurture and we cultivate over time. And so the Buddha spoke of joy as one of the seven factors of awakening, Sampojanga. So we got mindfulness, energy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity, investigation, and joy. And so joy is, again, like I said before, is the energy that sustains us. It's joy gives the energy, the mind, the sustaining as we deepen the practice. So it keeps us going. That joy. There's a story in the Anguttara Nikaya, which is in the Buddhist canon. And this group of monks approached the Buddha, and they were feeling disheartened by the difficulties of their lives because they're monks. It's hard. It's a hard life, especially then. It was really hard. And they were really tired. They were hungry. They were on the verge of giving up. And the Buddha, with this his great compassion, he reminded them of the joy that's just inherent in the Dharma. He says, monks, when the mind is joyful, the body becomes calm. When the body is calm, one feels happiness. And when one is happy, the mind becomes concentrated, or samadhi arises. So I really love this because samadhi or concentration is considered this practice of like, all right, I got to concentrate on this thing. But when we're concentrating on this thing, is there calmness there? Is there joy there? Is there happiness there? Is there joy there? And so samadhi, the Buddhists describing samadhi or concentration as this joyful, open, calm, happy experience, much different than it's taught many many times in Buddhism. So there's this thing of suffering in order to get something that's really embedded in our Western culture, like no pain, no gain. Kind of bring that into the into the Buddhist. But the Buddha didn't say that. He never said that. It's not always fun, you know. It's like I was a musician, and there's a lot of joy in playing. But when you're practicing and learning, is that really joyful? I don't know. Sometimes, but usually it's not, especially if it's something that's really hard. Or retreat, you go on retreat, I go on these long retreats and it's like joy's there, you kind of it's there, but is it necessarily joyful? I don't know. It's pretty hard. You have moments of joy and it conditions joy in the rest of your life, but the actual practice of it isn't always there. The joy's there, but the joyfulness isn't always there. Uh, so I don't know why I went there, but I'll keep going. But the Buddha did encourage, us to keep focusing on the joys of practice. And there's these four kinds of joy that he talked about. And so there's the joy of ethical conduct, the joy of meditation or samadhi, the joy of letting go, uh, and just the joy of giving. So the four kinds of joy. The first one is the joy of giving, which is dana, joy of generosity. And we don't always think of giving as joyful. Growing up, like this time of the year, it's like a requirement. You know, somebody gives you something, you have to give them something, or you have to give everybody in your family something. I had a giant family, so my mother was one of 10, and then we had four in our family, and you're expected to give everybody something. And so my mother's 10 siblings all had like five, six kids. And we'd go over to grandma's house and there'd be like 80 people there in this like one bedroom place. But there's this, it was not joyful, but there was all this expectation of giving and everybody had to give this. And yeah, we ended up just doing like drawing from a hat. Like, all right, that came much later, should have come much earlier, but there's still that requirement. Uh, And I felt it from my mother who couldn't afford it, who couldn't afford gifts. And she felt this requirement to always have something for us, to provide for us. And she couldn't. And seeing that pain was really, really difficult to see. And I saw it every year. Um, but generosity can mean many different things. It can be about offering time. It can be about offering attention. It can be about offering care. There's many ways to express joy. And in the there's a sutta actually called the Dana Sutta, which Dana again is generosity, and it says the act of generosity brings joy in three ways. So the first one is in the anticipation of giving. You know that feeling when you're really happy about giving something and you're really excited about giving this person the thing. If you don't feel that excitement, that's probably a indication that it's a requirement. Uh, and then the second one is in the act of giving itself, and then the third one is in the memory of having given. So there's these three practices of generosity uh, in this act of giving. And in this kind of capitalistic ethos, it's very embedded in our psychology of this kind of transactional relationship with everything. I give you something and you give me something in return, or you pay me and I give you a service kind of thing, and then it's sort of this exchange. But what that does is it creates more and more separation. This separation is me and this you, that I'm doing something for you that you're paying me for, and I'm required to do it for you because you gave me this thing. So it gets to be uh, it just perpetuates this constant separation. But the universe doesn't really work like that. If you look at nature, it doesn't really happen like that. Things arise and fall, and things are more cyclical and fluid and organic. It's not like nature's out there exchanging goods for services. It's something that we've made up. So there's this cyclical, more karmic relationship, this fluidity of giving and receiving that happens. And we don't know how or when we'll be supported, but as we put faith and trust in this kind of natural but almost mystical process, it becomes more supportive and continues to show up for us. And this examination is really, really important to look at. Um, yeah, I think it's interesting to look at. Well, my teachers, Tanisara and Kitasaro, they've they've lived off generosity since the very beginning. They've never required money, and they've never had to be worried about money. Or John Travis, or um, this center, the generosity of so many people have come together, and they cut the grass and they do all these things, and then the Dharma is exchanged, and it's this really beautiful, fluid, cyclical relationship. And it's such a in just the Dharma itself, it's been sustained for 2,600 years just through this continuous cycle, this fluidity, and these beautiful teachings have been held up by the practice of generosity, just really beautiful. Yeah. So generosity, and so as I said, the separation happens in this kind of transactional relationship. But with generosity, it dissolves the boundaries between self and other. And it reminds us of our interconnectedness, this dependency on one another. Uh, We're all dependent. Even the richest billionaire on the planet is dependent on other people. And so in this delight, in this joy of sharing, we cultivate that. It's the first thing that the Buddha taught people when he would meet them, was how to be generous, dana. I I have this quote that I really like whenever I talk about dana, and it doesn't really necessarily fit my talk, but I think it's a little bit humorous, so I'll read it anyway. So it says, when you are practicing generosity, you should feel a little pinch when you give something away. That pinch is your stinginess protesting. if you if you give away your old worn out coat that you wouldn't be caught dead wearing, that is not generosity. There is no pinch. You are doing nothing to overcome your stinginess. You're just cleaning out your closet and calling it something else. Giving away your coat might keep someone warm, but it does not address the problem to free ourselves from self-cherishing and self-grasping. That's Gelek Rinpoche. So the joy of giving is the first one. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Okay. The second one is the joy of virtue, which is sila. Sila is virtue or ethics. And this is often overlooked, but the Buddha very much emphasized ethics kind of comes before a lot of the practices, because if you're not ethical, uh, it's difficult to get the calm that you need for insight to happen. So if you're having to, the five precepts is something, I say every morning and try to live by every day. The first one's not killing, the second one's not stealing or taking what's not given. The third one's not no exploitation through your sexuality or harm through sexuality. The fourth one's speech, right speech, and the fifth one is intoxication that leads to heedlessness. And really, that fifth one's all about the more intoxicated you get, the more likely you're going to do the first four. So that's really what that's all about. Uh, and that's different for everybody. So if I'm having to keep up like a whole web of lies, it's difficult to relax enough to get insight. Or if I'm out there killing stuff indiscriminately, it's really difficult to get concentrated. Or if really all of these are about doing harm to self and other, if I'm out there doing any type of harm, that's going to weigh on me karmically, but also mentally and spiritually, all these ways. That's going to make it really, really difficult to reach down and contact that deep joy that's required or that's offered, or create the space for that joy to arise, that enlightenment to arise. So that's very important. Another Dhammapada uh, line: happiness is born from the joy of a pure life. Yeah, and so when we live with integrity, treating others with kindness and honesty, we create the conditions for a peaceful mind. This is the joy of knowing that our actions are aligned with our deepest values. So that's a good one. The third one, so there's four, four types of joy that the Buddha talked about. The third one is the joy of samadhi. Again, it's sometimes we don't associate concentration or samadhi with joy, but it should be. It's this really beautiful practice that so much joy can come from, and I've experienced it myself. Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha describes how mindfulness of breathing leads to a profound sense of joy and ease. So he says, one trains breathing in, I feel rapture. Breathing out, I feel rapture. Piti is the word here, rapture. Or it's like really extreme joy. It's this energized joy that can arise there. And again, it doesn't come from anything external because you're just breathing. But you reach these states of just this pure, beautiful joy. There's just a rising. It's like you're a fountain receiving this joy. It's a really great experience. And then when you're consistent with it, it starts to infuse your entire life with this joyfulness. This is Ajahn Suchito. He's excellent with describing samadhi practice. Uh, actually has this great essay called "Samadhi is Pure Joy," and this says, "I think of enjoyment as receiving joy, and samadhi as the art of refined enjoyment. It is the careful collecting of oneself to the joy of the present moment. Joyfulness means there's no fear, no tension, no ought to be, or no ought to. There isn't anything we have to do about it." Yeah. So it's a complete letting go. And the fourth one, the fourth joy, is the toughest one, but it's mudita, the sympathetic joy. So finding joy and the joy of others. And this has been a big practice for me. Um, yeah, lot to say about that, but I won't. I'll just stick to my script here. Um, yeah, so the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it encourages us to let one cultivate a boundless heart of loving kindness and let one's thoughts of boundless love pervade the entire world. So we pervade, we infuse the world with loving kindness. And so celebrating the joys of others can be so difficult, even with our friends or those we're jealous of. And we get into like difficult people that we don't agree with and they're winning or having all this joy, then it gets really difficult. But it's really beautiful because it's like it's a pointer right to where we're stuck. It's this direct pointer that's so raw and gets right at uh, what we need to look at. It's like what is that? And what you find typically is that it's, at least for me, is this continuous separation. Yeah, this continuous separation. I'm separating. I'm creating a a me, and when I create a me, I create an other, and then I'm continuously othering. And then when I don't accept the joy of that person, then I'm creating even more distance, more distance, more distance, more distance. And I'm just supporting and bolstering this idea that I'm separate. And it's difficult because we have a lot of there's a lot of stuff that's personal in there. And so that's something to work with. That's maybe an advanced practice. But just start with little things. We get jealous of people all the time, and that's a really rich place to work. One of my favorite teachings, or one of my favorite quotes, is by this man named Thomas Merton, and it's kind of related to this. But he had this awakening experience. Thomas Merton was a monk at this place called Gethsemane in Bardstown, Kentucky, and really influential in Catholicism in that area. But he was very much he practiced meditation and into Eastern practices, and he had this awakening experience in downtown Louisville, which I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And there's actually one of those historic plaques, like those bronze plaques, and it said the Fourth and Walnut Awakening or something. I can't remember exactly what he called. What is it called? Yeah, it's something like that, and it describes Thomas Merton's awakening experience at Fourth and Walnut in downtown Louisville, which is like, it's kind of cool. It's like those plaques that show historic buildings and things. Same thing. And I grew up reading that, and I think this is what it says. I'm not sure if it has this entire quote, but this was his realization. It has theistic language, Christian language in it, so but you can filter it through your Buddhist lens. Uh, it says in Louisville, at the corner of Fourth and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all these people, that they were mine and I theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. It was like waking from a dream of separateness, of spurious self-isolation in a special world. The sense of liberation from an illusory difference was such a relief and such a joy to me that I almost laughed out loud. I have the immense joy of being human, a member of a race in which God himself became incarnate. As if the sorrows and stupidities of the human condition could overwhelm me, now that I realize what we all are. Now I realize what we all are. And if only everybody could realize this, but it cannot be explained. There's no way of telling people that they are walking around shining like the sun. Then it was as if I suddenly saw the secret beauty of their hearts, the depths of their hearts where neither sin nor desire nor self-knowledge can reach, the core of their reality, the person that each one is in the eyes of God. If only they could all see themselves as they really are. If only we could see each other that way all the time. There would be no war, no more hatred, no more cruelty, no more greed. But this cannot be seen, only believed and understood by a peculiar gift. Yeah, very beautiful. All right, skipping, 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 skipping. Yeah. Another practice I like to do with the sympathetic joy is was taught to me by my Tibetan teacher, and it was whenever you experience something really beautiful or something that you enjoy, like a sunset or even that first sip of coffee, you offer it to all beings. So it's, you experience this sunset. It's like, wow. And you say, may all beings be able to feel like I'm feeling right now. Or may all beings be able to experience what I'm experiencing as I sip this first sip of coffee in the morning. This kind of starts to break down the walls between us, and we begin to not hold on to these things. As we hold on to them, we cherish them, we keep them, and they become fragile, and we have to protect them. But if the idea here is we knock down the walls that separate us and share the joy with all people. Yeah, it's really beautiful. And so with each breath, may we cultivate joy and share it with all beings. I just wanted to close out with I know I'm going way long, but with just this reading from David White on joy. And it's in this book called Consolations. And I just think he does such a great job with it here. It's very much in line with what we do in Buddhism. It says, joy is a meeting place of deep intentionality and of self forgetting, the bodily alchemy of what lies inside us in communion with what formerly seemed outside, but is now neither, but become a living frontier, a voice speaking between us and the world. Dance, laughter, affection, skin touching skin, singing in the car, music in the kitchen, the quiet, irreplaceable, and companionable presence of a daughter, the sheer intoxicating beauty of the world inhabited as an edge between what we previously thought was us and what we thought was other than us. Joy can be made by practiced, hard-won achievement as much as by an unlooked for passing act of grace arrived out of nowhere. Joy is a measure of our relationship to death and our living with death. Joy is the act of giving ourselves away before we need to or are asked to. Joy is practiced generosity. If joy is a deep form of love, it is also the raw engagement with the passing seasonality of existence, the fleeting presence of those we love understood as gift, going in and out of our lives, faces, voices, memory, aromas of the first spring day or a wood fire in winter, the last breath of a dying parent as they create a rare, raw, beautiful frontier between loving presence and a new and blossoming absence. To feel a full and untrammeled joy is to have become fully generous. To allow ourselves to be joyful is to have walked through the doorway of fear, the dropping away of the anxious, worried self felt like a thankful death itself, a disappearance, a giving away, overheard in the laughter of friendship, the vulnerability of happiness felt suddenly as a strength, a solace and a source, the claiming of our place in the living conversation, the sheer privilege of being in the presence of a mountain, a sky, or a well-loved familiar face. I was here, and you are here, and together we made the world. Let's just pause for a moment here. May we realize the joy at the heart of the Dharma and reflect that to all beings and everything that we do. May we live out the joy and the light that this season is truly about. And may we respond with generosity and joy in all that we face. May all beings, may all beings, may all beings, without exception, be free from suffering and the conditions of suffering. Om Mani Padme Hum. Ringing the bell, Zoom stars. Thank you for your attention. Announcements.